Hi, my name is Edwin Jones, and I've been gang stalked by this government for at least 26 years since suing the Indianapolis Police Department. And I have posted written documentation proving it on my Facebook page under the photos section. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I graduated from Indiana State University in 1973 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with a major emphasis in economics and insurance. My first job out of college was as a loan officer slash collector at Morris Plan Savings and Loan. Since then, I've been a retail store manager for a Payless shoe store, an instructor of diesel engines and automatic transmissions for Detroit Diesel Allison, an instructor of Okinawa and Ishinryu Karate, and affirmative action officer for Indianapolis in 1975. That was just a summer job. I've been a quality control technician at Brulin Chemical Company, a machine operator, and am presently a warehouse worker. I ran for state representative in Indiana, District 98, in 2002 and 2006 primaries on a police misconduct slash medical malpractice platform. I've been a vocalist in several bands for 50 years and have played guitar and sang as a volunteer in nursing home for the last 25 years, basically to keep my sanity. My home's paid for. I live alone. I've got a Facebook page, as I said before, Edwin Lewis Jones, with posts and photos for you to see. I am reading this so I can move right along because this is a lengthy video, and I recently joined several groups to deal with targeted individuals who are being gang stalked for one reason or other by government and or big business. And what I found out that usually being a whistleblower or a potential whistleblower will get you gang stalked, as I have been. And people try to say you're crazy, but what I do is tell them that the most historical gang stalked targeted individuals that we're aware of are Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Edward Snowden. All attempted to change the status quo by speaking truth to power. They were all followed, watched, had their inner circles infiltrated, and were ultimately killed, except for Snowden. But you can believe the government is working on that right now as we speak. I did not know prior to a few months ago that there are 2 to 3 million of people just like me who are suffering similarly in America today. The methods used by the perpetrators on targeted individuals are unlimited. Murder, medical malpractice, social isolation and manipulation, legal manipulation, manipulation of the media, manipulation of family, covert home invasion, and electronic trauma are but a few that have been attempted and accomplished in my case and indeed in others. Others I have talked to have experienced directed energy weapons that produce wounds, that produce mental images and sounds. Fortunately, I haven't heard voices yet, but I do believe those who say they do because, I've seen the technology out there and it exists. I have only experienced things of a social and a medical nature. Now, before joining the various groups, I thought I had been a target since 1989 when I suffered an unconstitutional arrest and detention, an unconstitutional search and seizure, planting of evidence by the Indianapolis Police Department. But actually, after talking to a few people who were targeting individuals, it may have started 5 years or so earlier when I sued General Motors, pauper and pro se, in civil court. The trial was held in Sarah Evans Barker's federal district court. She allowed people legally summoned to skip that trial. I was representing myself, so they could do just about anything they wanted to me. That should have been my first clue. She dismissed my claim with prejudice, saying in a terse manner, "You've had your day in court." Barnes and Thornburg, the largest and most powerful law firm in Indiana at the time, were representing General Motors against me. Now, we'll get back to that. Excuse me. Now, I have sued the Indianapolis Police, Pauper Pro Se, through federal district, appellate, and the United States Supreme Court for violations of constitutional, civil, and human rights violations. And none of those cases were properly adjudicated. And before there was 20 years before there was the internet that you can complain on, I had to suffer in silence. My papers, court papers, were illegally disposed of and phony decisions mailed to me. Now, since they knew this and they wanted to silence me, so, my knowledge necessitated silencing and isolating me. And I couldn't and still can't get an attorney to represent me or get any member of the media to cover my written proof on this subject. For example, 21 certified letters, return receipt, to each employee of the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper asking for an investigation into unconstitutional acts by the government were lost by the Brightwood post office. Yeah, that's what I said. They were lost. But I kept the certified receipts, and they're on my Facebook page under photos. Also on my Facebook page under photos are letters to the FBI, the Justice Department, senators, attorneys general, and even every president between 1990 and 2009 asking for an investigation into constitutional, civil, and human rights violations. They all advised me to get an attorney. Can you believe that? I mean, that's pretty much in your face. But the best one, and you've got to search my photos for it, was a letter from Bill Clinton's White House saying that the White House cannot get involved in legal matters. I'm not kidding. A copy of that letter and all other letters is on my Facebook page if they hadn't been taken down. And if they have, I'll find the copies and send them to you. The good part is these days I don't have casual sex anymore. I don't consort with people who do drugs. I exercise regularly, and I have a well-balanced diet. I don't go to Christian churches anymore, and every time I see a black woman, she's a perpetrator to me, or she will be sometime in the future. That's how it always works. And this is what I suffer from the government most of all. Social things of a social nature. And even though I'm not doing anything wrong, neither did Jesus, Gandhi, or Martin Luther King. These people refused to fall on their own swords, and guess what? They were killed anyway. So I'd much rather die on my feet than on my knees. My only desire right now is to reconnect with my granddaughter who is being kept from me. I have no family, no friends. Now Legal Shield is working with me on that. I'm not hopeful about the outcome, but I've got to try. Because one day she may ask me, "Hey, Grandpa, where you been?" And I want to show her that I tried to see her, but circumstances were under my control. Now, let's get to the real story. If you are a musician, you're aware that drugs, sex, groupies, and alcohol are part and parcel of the music scene. And I did participate. However, in 1989, I wasn't aware of what crack did to people and how it made them act. I never thought I had to watch somebody who left the bedroom. Looking back, however, this person that was in my home at the time was home before, and this may not have been a random act, but planned beforehand after I had sued General Motors. We'll never know, but it's one of those things that I wonder about. But anyway, she was there in the bedroom, and she left the room supposedly to go to the bathroom. When she returned, she had my kitchen knife behind her back and tried to stab me with it. I guess she wanted, the whole $200 in my pocket. I fought her off, tossed her out, and left the knife lay where it was at, still with her fingerprints on it. I just knew the police were coming, so I waited. They didn't come for day one, day two, they came on day three. And I was arrested for rape without an explanation at the time of the arrest. Now, when I saw my attorney, Ali Talib, who was a friend of mine for years, he said, her story is just full of holes and she has robbed men before. And I said, oh, excuse me. So that was planned. And that's when I made my biggest mistake and threatened to sue the police while I was still locked up. That was the huge mistake. After I said that, my attorney started to behave uncharacteristically nervous. I demanded my discovery papers from him, and then he quit immediately after giving them to me. When I looked at the papers, I saw total fabrication. The lies that they told were astounding. They were inherently unbelievable. They made no sense. The police helped her perjure herself and just made up a story that would have been unbelievable for a fifth grader. None of the papers were in affidavit form as required by law. The affidavit for probable cause was not signed by a judge but by a prosecutor, which is expressly forbidden by state and federal law. Statements by so-called witnesses and police involved, they were not signed. Nothing was signed and sworn to. And then I discovered that the judge assigned to the case was a black female judge that I went to college with at Indiana State University. That was before she went to Ohio State to go to law school. And her job, and you can't trust lawyers or judges, her job was to cover up the constitutional transgressions of the police. Now, after 5 months of incarceration, my bond was mysteriously reduced from $30,000 to $7,000. My mother paid it without me asking her to do that, which is odd to me because she had left home when I was 15 and never really showed a real interest in my life. But all of a sudden, she wants to help me. So after I got out of jail, I got into my house and I noticed that after 5 months of not paying my bills, my electricity, my water, my telephone, and my gas was still on. Can you believe that? After 5 months. My dog was gone. And when I asked my father, I said, why are all the utilities still on? He said, well, he paid to keep them on, I want to do you a favor. But he was retired. He had his own home to take care of, and he couldn't have possibly afforded to do that. That was just another red flag. Now, when my son was dropped off at the house to help me pack up my things, he noticed that his Sega video game that I bought him was different. I looked at it. It was different. So I went to my file cabinet where I kept all my receipts and found that none of the receipts for household goods and musical equipment were there. The files were gone. Then I noticed there was a slight difference in the looks of my microwave, refrigerator, guitar. Everything was the same model, but it just looked differently. Then I noticed a piece of tape with the newspapers stuck to it in the corner of one of my bedroom windows, and then I knew what had happened. The windows had been covered up, and the police had been camped out in my home for 5 months. I went upstairs where I keep my taxes and other important papers. The police had redone 10 years worth of taxes, and the handwriting looked almost exactly like mine. It was scary. I knew someone else did them because I wasn't smart enough to do taxes like that. My lawsuit also against General Motors was rewritten to reflect a different version of the trial than what actually happens. That's what makes me think that this whole thing happened after I sued General Motors. And at the same time, I'm finding things that are not mine in my house. My mother and her husband without asking me, once again, rented a U-Haul to help me pack and take my household goods to another location. And I just refused. I flat refused. I told him the stuff isn't mine, and I left the house and went to go live with my father. After a week or so, at my father's house, he became obsessed with me moving my household goods out of the old house. After 5 months, there was this strange rush to get the stuff out of the house. All of a sudden, I was renting the house from one of his social club members, so he said he needs the house. He wants to rent the house out. I said, well, he could have done that and just got rid of the stuff. So I refused to move it. And one night, I can't believe that it happened, but I was asleep and somebody gassed me because I could feel drugged when I woke up, and they went through my things while I was asleep, went through my papers. And shortly after that, his club members, my father's club members, had moved my household goods out of the old house into where I was staying. And I could hear them day and night moving stuff into the basement, moving stuff onto the porch. And so for some reason, they were just determined to bring that stuff to me. So I left and stayed at Wheeler Mission for a year. Oh, this gets better. These are all tricks that maybe you don't know of, but hopefully I can educate you on how to avoid them. But anyway, while at Wheeler Mission, I was covertly gang stalked by the Indianapolis Police Department. And here's what happened. The director asked me to watch the front desk one night, and he gave me instructions not to let anyone in without a police car or an ambulance visible. In addition, I was to let a nurse in at 7 a.m. because she was supposed to give shots or something like that to the residents. Well, that night I got a call saying, this is IPD. Well, it was a woman's voice. This is IPD, and we're sending the homeless man over. Please let him in. I told her I'll let him in if I can see him get out of a police car where I can take the car's number and your badge number. She sent him anyway, without a police car. I refused to let him in. She called back. This is IPD. You didn't let him in. And I told her I need to see him get out of a police car. If he does, I'll let him in. He came back around, no car. I refused him entry. So I suspect that had I let him in and violated protocol, he would have assassinated me right there on the floor. I would have been alone. And then the nurse would have conveniently found me dead or finished the job if I wasn't. Oh, this is good stuff here. Now, after surviving the mission for a year, I moved into a real estate office at the top in a little single room apartment and got a job at a chemical company. I worked there for about 10 years, and during that time I paid cash for a house and a car and sued IPD all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I couldn't find an attorney to represent me even though I had proof of constitutional rights violations. So I filed pauper and pro se in federal district court, and guess who the judge was? Yeah, you guessed it. It was Sarah Evans Barker, the same judge that threw my case out when I sued General Motors. And she said that I didn't prove my case, even though I included state's discovery showing prima facie evidence that a fifth grader would have been able to recognize. So she obviously abused her discretion. So I filed an appeal with the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. I had to mail the papers. The appeal was denied, but I doubt that it was even adjudicated. It probably didn't even make it to the court. So I prepared a petition for a writ of certiorari to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, rode a bus, and hand-delivered it to the United States Supreme Court. I took pictures. I still have the bus tickets, and it's all on photos on my Facebook page. It was denied. I waited for a year to ensure all United States Supreme Court publications were published, and the United States Supreme Court never filed my papers. Then they sent me a phony decision. Now, This is where I can prove that I filed it. See the date? Okay? And this is the phony decision. If you can see that. The phony decision that they mailed to me. This is on my Facebook page under photos also. That is, like I said before, in case that they haven't taken them down. And so now I can prove fraud and deceit in judicial proceedings from the Indiana State Court to the United States Supreme Court. So now they really got to keep me as quiet as the proverbial tree that falls in the forest. And I have been covertly separated completely from mother, father, brother, son, and granddaughter. Every church that I attended, made me feel unwelcome, more isolation. I could not find any work commensurate with my level of education or experience except manual labor. When I got a girlfriend, they would act very differently towards me after a few weeks or a few months. And it became very apparent that I was being socially manipulated, but in ways that I could not prove. So one day, on my way to get periodontal work done by Dr. Brian J. Roy, I was struck by a car carrying two men. They pulled out of the juvenile center driveway, another police station, hit me, spun me around, and then pulled right back to the driveway and sat there. They never got out of their car while others were getting out of their car to see if I was hurt. They missed killing me by only a few feet. Now, when I rescheduled my appointment with Dr. Roy, and they know which route I took the same route because I'm not thinking. But anyway, I get in his chair and he says, I'm going to take your GQ smile. And we had been joking before then, but I didn't know that he wasn't joking. And he took a chunk of flesh from between my teeth, right here, that caused my teeth to drift. And that was in the early 2000s. And I sued him, but the trial was held in a place away from the public. And once again, he was legally summoned but not compelled to appear. Do you see a pattern here? And that's how the courts work. Whether you have a public defender, a private attorney, or you do it yourself, once they've made up their mind not to give you any justice, they do everything that they can to prevent that. And it doesn't matter if it's blatant or not. So this just has gone on and it keeps going on. Now I play guitar everywhere I can. It kind of keeps my spirit up. Even at the IU, Indiana University School of Dentistry. And I played there for 7 or 8 years for the patients there. Everybody loved it. The staff loved it. But all of a sudden, the staff stopped coming around and jamming to my music. And the last time I was there getting my teeth cleaned, a black guy shouted, You can't play that stuff here. You should have been playing it downstairs." Real loud and mean and boisterous. And he shocked everybody else because they were getting into my music. And one guy even tried to tell him to shut up, but I said, "No, don't do that. I'll put my guitar up." Now, this is why I was entertaining other patients. Now, that's gang stalking at its finest. When they confront you verbally, violently, that's gang stalking at its purest. I didn't respond angrily. I've been doing a lot of meditating at my Buddhist center, and I was pretty much prepared for it. I just put my guitar up. But after I got my teeth cleaned, I remember that I left my leather jacket at the cleaning booth. I called back, but they said they couldn't find it. This is all to make me angry and not come back, but it won't work because I'm going back. I'll just not take my coat off, and if somebody doesn't want me to play, I'll wait for them to tell me, and if they don't want me to play, I'll just put it back in my case. So what they want you to do is to isolate yourself engage in habits that are not conducive to long health, and they want to make you do it to yourself, so they can say they didn't have a hand in doing it, that you made your own decision. Oh, it gets even better. About 3 weeks ago, I discovered. Well, I do my laundry every 2 weeks, right? So one morning I got up to do my laundry, and I found my washer had been filled up. It had a pair of dirty underwear floating in it. It was set on a cycle permanent press that I never use. And then they turned it off after they filled it up. So someone had been in my house, for God's sakes. And the neighbors had to have seen them. I have experienced a couple of neighbors threatening my life. It's just been incredible. Now, the only times that I wasn't gang stalked was during the few years I went back to associating with women in the street and partying hard. However, I had to stop that. Like I said, I want to die on my feet and not on my knees if that's coming. So I stopped partying. I haven't had a girlfriend in almost 10 years, and haven't had sex in 5 years since I retired at age 62. So the system wants us to self-destruct. I don't see any end in sight. I just go to my Buddhist and Hindu temples for enlightenment, knowing full well it's not a matter of if, but when the government will step in to somehow destroy that spiritual relationship. All I can do is continue in the meantime as a targeted individual, eat well, exercise daily, and get out to the public as much as possible. And that, my friends, is almost every trick in the book. Thank you.